Hello GA artists and welcome to this week's art project video. I hope you guys enjoyed the dino puppets that you were making last week. I really enjoyed seeing so many of the different creations that you guys came up with. I saw dinos of all shapes and sizes and colors, and they were really awesome. I'm hoping to be able to make a little video or a little photo album of a lot of the different pictures that parents are sending me of your fantastic masterpieces to put together so that you and your peers can see what everybody else is creating along with you. Now let's talk about what we're gonna do this week. I am really excited about this project and I hope you guys will be just as excited along with me. So this week we're going to be creating something in the style of Optical Illusion Art, or op art for short. This is something that, while it is created one way, kind of tricks your mind to make it look like something else. In this case, we are going to be using a piece of paper and your hand, some markers. That's it. But when it's done, you're going to have a flat piece of paper that looks like your hand is sticking or popping out of it. Almost like your hand is kind of coming out of the paper. So here's my example, and I'm gonna walk you guys through how to do this. Now, like I said, all you're gonna need is a piece of white paper, your hand to trace, a pencil so that you can trace it, and some markers. Now, if you don't have markers, you can use crayons or color pencils. It's not going to be quite as easy, but it definitely can still be done. You really want to choose a color scheme for this. If you notice, I chose warm colors, red, yellow, and orange to color mine with. I also used a black Sharpie, a black marker, black Sharpie. Any of that would work, but you do want to have some of those dark black lines to separate each of your color patterns. So a color scheme like warm colors or cool colors or complementary colors, even analogous colors like a lot of us have learned about, would work really well. But you want to stick to about 3 colors. 2 or 3 colors are going to be the max. If you get too much more than that, it's going to get a little messy. So, are you guys ready to see how to create our op art hand? All right, let's get started. All right, guys. So let's get started on our op art hand. So for this project, you're going to need a piece of white paper. I'm just going to be using plain white computer copy paper. So you're going to need paper, a black marker, black Sharpie, a pencil. You're going to need markers in whatever color scheme you chose. This time I'm going to be using cool colors. And then you're going to need some kind of a ruler or flat edge. I'm actually using a little paint stir. I've been doing a lot of painting around my house. And so this is a nice flat edge, just like a ruler. I don't actually need to measure anything. I just need the straight edge. So a ruler would work, a little paint stir. Maybe your parents have been doing some house projects around. The edge of a box would work. Another piece of paper would work well. Anything with a nice straight edge. All right, so this is all you need for this. And then, of course, your hand. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I need is my paper. And then you're going to lay your hand out on your paper. You want to kind of spread your fingers. You don't want your fingers to touch the edge or the top of the paper. You're also going to be tracing your wrist all the way down to the bottom of the paper. So lay your hand out. Now this is the tricky part. We don't want alien hands. Now, what I mean by that, I'm going to show you a do and a don't way to trace your hand. Here's the don't. I don't want to take and trace my hand and let my pencil tilt to the side, meaning I don't want it to kind of lay flat as I'm tracing my hand. The reason why is your hand and your fingers are 3-dimensional and they're rounded. So when you allow your pencil to trace at an angle, you're actually getting underneath of your hand and your arm. And what you end up with are these itty bitty skinny little fingers, similar to this. Alien hand looks really messy. Instead, what you want to do, lay that hand out, spread your fingers around, keep that pencil pointed towards the ceiling, nice and vertical, the entire time you're tracing. This is going to allow you to trace your hand nice and neatly. So again, keep that pencil facing the sky. If you make a bump somewhere that you don't like, don't worry. That's why we're using a pencil. You can always go back and erase and fix it. Again, I'm tracing everything, including my wrist, until it reaches the bottom of the paper. All right. Now, once I have that done, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing straight lines all over my paper, but I'm not going to trace inside the hand. So I'm going to take my flat edge, starting at the very top of the paper. I'm going to line it up to make sure that I am making all my lines straight. I use this little trick where I line up the edge of whatever I'm using so that it lines up really neatly with the edge of the paper. The edge of the paper is nice and flat. Edge of this is nice and flat. So if we line it up, we know that our line is going to be perfectly horizontal. Line that up, draw a straight line across. I'm going to move that down about a ½ inch or so. How wide you make it is totally up to you. I wouldn't make it too wide though. Otherwise our picture gets a little off. Line it up, draw that straight edge. We're going to keep doing this all the way down our paper. Now be very careful, because once you reach your fingers, you're going to have to stop and hop. So if you can see right here, this next row, I'm going to have a finger in the way. I don't want to just draw a line all the way across, because then we won't be able to make those curved lines in the finger to make it look like that optical illusion. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my line across. When I get to the edge of my finger where that pencil line is, I'm going to stop. I'm going to hop to the other side, and I'm going to continue my line. All right, you see that? We're going to do the same thing with our next one. Now, this next row, I have 3 fingers in the way instead of just 1. So I have to be very careful. Draw that line, stop, hop, stop, hop, stop, hop, and then to the end. I'm going to do this until I reach the bottom of the paper. So ultimately, when I'm done, I will have straight lines in the background, the negative space of the paper, all the way. The only thing that will not have a straight line is the hand itself. All right, now I've done a couple of these, so I'm actually going to stop this here and show you what it's going to look like once it's all finished. Remember, you can pause this video at any time. So once you're done, you're going to have a piece of paper that looks very similar to this. Again, those straight lines are going from the top all the way to the bottom, but I have not drawn anything inside of that hand. That's our positive space. For the next part of our project, we are going to add our curved lines. Now, this can be the trickiest part of this project, but if you follow along with me, you'll be able to do it in no time. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the very top finger. I'm going to start right here with my middle finger because it's the finger that sticks up the highest. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my marker. If you don't feel confident with this yet, you can use a pencil and then trace back over your lines later. It is completely up to you. Now, the line at the top where my finger is, I'm actually going to just trace the tip of the finger. The rest of the curved lines get a little trickier after that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. I'm going to trace the tip of the finger. And notice that my curved line goes from one side of the straight line to the other side of the straight line, no gaps. Okay, I'm going to do that for the tips of each of my fingers. Some of these curved lines are higher, some are lower than the others, but ultimately I will have a curved line for the top of all 5 fingers. The thumb is going to be the longest because it's at an angle. Now, I'm not going to be tracing the hand. That's why I did it in pencil. I'm leaving that alone. But what I am going to do is I'm going to come in and for every single one of these lines that I have, I need to draw a curved line. So I'm going to come down here. Again, I'm coming to the middle finger because I've already done the curved line for these other 2 fingers on that same row, but I have not done it here. I'm going to come to the straight line, draw a curved line, like a little rainbow, that goes from the straight line over here on the left to the right. Then I'm going to do my next finger. Curved line, curved line. So anywhere there's a gap, we're drawing a curved line like a little rainbow. What this is called is the contour of the hand, meaning our hands are 3-dimensional. And so we're drawing what the contour, which is the line that shows us the shape or the form of our finger. So this would go around. Okay. Going to come to the next finger, curved line, curved line. Notice that my lines are pretty curved. They're not super flat. That's important. The more curved they are, the more it's going to look like your hand is popping out of the paper and less like it's just barely sitting there. Curved lines. And we're going to do this all the way down these 4 fingers. Notice I'm not doing that thumb yet. There's a reason. That thumb can be a little tricky. So I'm adding those curved lines. Remember, if I'm getting ahead of you, just pause the video so you can catch up with me. All right, now I'm getting to the ends of my fingers. So here comes a trickier part. Notice I don't have any more lines in between these fingers, but I do over here. So just like I've been doing, I'm going to make a curved line. It's going to connect here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at that straight line, and I'm going to add a curved line that goes up. So it's wavy, down, up, and connected to the other side. That would be right where your knuckles are. So if you do make a fist, you can actually see that wave, that contour of your hand. All right, so we've got that. The next line is going to look a little funky, but I promise it's right. You're going to create a curved line that goes all the way from this side to the other side of your hand. Be careful not to get it too terribly close to your knuckles or those little parts we just drew. Now you're going to do the same thing throughout your hand. Curved line, curved line. Notice that they're fairly similar. They're what we call parallel, meaning they're running side by side without touching. Now, again, here is a trickier part because we don't have a straight line that connects right in between our thumbs. Some of you might, and if you do, that's great. I'll show you here on my example. I had one line that connected to a straight line before I got to my thumb, so I was able to connect that. On this one, I don't have that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw a curved line for the thumb. It's going to connect right down to my drawing. It's going to curve down and up, just like this. My line didn't quite match up. That's okay. But you can see the dip right there where your thumb kind of curves. Same thing for this one. I'm going to curve my line up, down, and over to the other side. This next one, I don't need to add that because I'm now down to the bottom of my thumb. So I'm just going to add a curved line. The rest of these are simply going to be curved lines until I reach the bottom of my wrist. All right, so now we've created the curved line for our hand. It's getting closer to looking like that optical illusion, but it's not quite there because there's a big step we have not done yet, and that would be adding value, adding a shadow. If you look at mine, you might notice that on the inside of each of these fingers right here, it is a little bit darker than on the opposite side. This is what we call a shadow. So from here, the light would be coming from this angle. So we have a shadow underneath. That's really going to allow our artwork to create this optical illusion. So the way that we're going to do this is on the right-hand side, or on the inside of each of your fingers, you're going to come in with a pencil and you're just going to create a dark mark. Now, if you notice, I'm kind of fanning that mark out a little bit, pressing down pretty good with my pencil, and then I'm going to make another row. I'm not going to press down very hard. This is going to create a lighter value, which helps with that shadow. So you can kind of already see that coming right here. It also is a line that allows us to kind of neaten up that finger. So once you've done that to one finger, I want you to do it to all of them. Again, only on the right side. Create that dark mark. It comes all the way down. And then take a little bit of the pressure off your pencil. Create a lighter value. Do this for each finger. And ultimately, we're going to be coloring over this with our markers, but in most cases, because you have that darker value underneath, it's going to show through just a little bit and make those colors that you are using just a little darker. Now, for this finger, I'm not going to come up here on my thumb, okay? All I'm going to do is this right inside portion of the finger. Coming all the way down and stopping right here where that line kind of starts to curve. You can taper it off a little bit if you'd like. Create that lighter value by not pressing down quite as hard with your pencil. And then lastly, we're going to do the side of our hand on the outside of the thumb. And we're going to create that line, that shadow coming all the way down to our wrist, all the way to the bottom of the paper. All right, almost there. Pause this video if you need to catch up, because now we're going to start coloring. Now, I told you to choose 2 or 3 colors that you want to use. They can be any color, but having a color scheme will help. For my first one, I chose to do warm colors, and I started with my darkest color at the top, and it worked down to my lightest. You could do it the opposite and start with the lightest at the top and work to the darkest. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to use purple, then green, and then my light blue. And I'm actually going to be making a pattern. So every single stripe, so inside of every line that we've done, I'm going to have all 3 colors. And they're going to repeat themselves over and over again. So I'm going to start at the top. And I like to do 1 color at a time. So I'm going to start with my purple. I'm actually going to bring a piece of paper under here. You might want to do the same thing just so I don't color on my table. And I'm going to take my purple and I'm going to simply draw a stripe. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to do this on every single line of my paper. Now, here, when I get to this one, I'm not actually inside the curve, I'm on the outside of the curve. So I'm just going to keep a straight line across, but I don't want to mark anything inside of that curve. That is going to be for my next row. So here, again, I'm not marking inside of there, only on the outside, staying within the rows. Then I'm going to curve that line up and curve it back over. Now my purple is dark enough that that shadow doesn't do a whole lot there, but it will hopefully do a little bit more for my green and blue that are slightly lighter than the purple. So this one is going to curve up, straight, curve, straight, curve, straight. If you would like to just do the straight lines first, kind of like you did with the marker with the black, that can sometimes make it a little easier, and then come back and do all of your curves later. All right, so again, this time I'm just doing on the outside of the hand. I'm going all the way down to the bottom of the paper. And I'm only using my first color. All right, so once you've got your first color completed, we're gonna add our second color. Now again, we're gonna do the exact same thing. So choose your second color and you're gonna make a second row. Again, I'm gonna turn my paper so I'm not drawing on my table. So this time, one more row, I'm leaving just enough room for my third color. If you don't have a third color, then you're going to make thicker stripes. Again, I find it much easier to go and do the straight lines first and come back and add your curve lines to the hand. But so that you can see what happens when we do them all at once, I'll go ahead and show you this now. Again, if your lines aren't perfect, it's okay. Just do the best that you can. Just do it as neatly as you can, and it'll all turn out. Straight, curve up, straight, curve up. It's really important that you follow those curves. Otherwise, it won't work. My table has uneven areas. That's why I'm getting these little low marks. Hopefully you have a flat table to work on. Curve up. All right, so let's finish this second color. All right, so now I finished my second color. So now we're gonna move on to the third and final color. For this one, you're gonna do the same thing, but ultimately you're wanting to make sure that you're filling in all the little white spots. So again, come through. This, I'm using my lightest color. So mine is that blue. I'm coming in and I'm simply filling in all the spaces that haven't been filled in yet. This should be the easiest one because you're just filling it in. You might have to color in some of your thicker areas. Other areas may have very little to color. But you should be seeing that optical illusion coming in. The shadows, and you notice my cool colors are a bit darker than my warm colors are, so you don't see those shadows as well, but it does leave a little bit of that shadow behind. The cool colors, that yellow really makes the paper pop, which is why it's much brighter. Also, those markers were better. Mine are starting to dry out just a little bit, but we're gonna get through it. I'm gonna leave my camera on this time so that you can see all the way to the end. Again, I'm still following that curve. I'm not just coloring it in. I'm still going straight lines and curved lines. I might have to go get a new marker. All right, I'm back with a new marker, so hopefully this will work a little bit better. So much better. Fill in some of those areas that were starting to dry out before. So almost finished with this row. Come back again, like I told you before, I like doing the straight sides first before coming back and getting the curved marks in. So I'm going to get in between those fingers, down the sides of the hand. All right, so now we just have the hand left. So again, I'm going to continue to follow those curves. That's very important. Filling in those little white spaces at the bottom. Some of them, like this one, are a little bit thicker. Yeah, actually having to come back with 2 rows, and that's okay. All right, friends, and there you have it. You have yet another optical illusion hand. You kind of see them side by side. You can see this one's much brighter. This one's a little darker, but both of them have that same effect. It almost looks like that hand is being kind of pulled out of that paper. Really a neat way of creating a fantastic optical illusion artwork. All right, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this. I cannot wait to see the artwork that you create. Let your parents know. Send me a picture, an email, a picture on Instagram, any way they want. I love to see these. Hopefully I can get some of these pictures into different albums or videos so that you can see what your friends have been up to. All right, guys, I will see you next week.